So some of you, I know a few of us, were very privileged to be at the canonization of, I can't believe I'm saying this, St. John Henry Newman. It's wonderful. I won't bore you too much, but I went personally to say thank you because it was 1990, a few years ago. I'd been curate myself in Littlemore as an Anglican priest many years ago. Forgive me for being a bit personal for a moment. And I served 4 years in Littlemore, which was where Newman obviously walked up from St. Mary's University Church to go minister there. And people used to tell me, I remember one mother saying, she died when I was there, but she said, my mother used to say Pusey was a very sad man. And there was a memory of if you like, of the Oxford movement and everything that took place there. And they all said, oh, Newman is a wonderful priest and pastor. And you could see that, obviously, we read that in the reports of his funeral. He was very good at visiting people and so on. And it was the last day of a novena of prayer to John Henry Newman that this job at Aid to the Church in Need came about, and I was privileged to be received into the church in Newman's chapel. Some of you who will know a lot about this will realise that Dominic Barbary, Blessed Dominic Barbary, had arrived soaked, and Newman's confession went on so long that at night he asked for a break. Well, I'm afraid to say my confession didn't go on quite that long. Probably should have done, but anyway, it was a privilege. So I was busy in this world of Aid to the Church in Need, and John will tell you, go from a bizarre thing. I left early from a former star of the Eurovision Song Contest singing in Church House as a Ukrainian fundraising do on the Friday night. Got a very early plane out, and then went along and met with some board members of ACN, benefactors of ACN. It was a personal trip. And then thought, well, I'll see if I can get into some Maria Major. I knew the sisters of Das Werk. I was wandering around and said, oh, come on, will you read a prayer? So suddenly, some people thought I was Dr. Ian Kerr because he was on the list, but I was announced. It's a bit short, yes. And I'm not the Newman expert. I'm told he's not a Newman expert, he's the Newman expert, as somebody told me earlier on. So Aid to the Church in Need was the only charity mentioned in the brochure for the Newman canonization, because the London Oratory Scholar said they counted a privilege to sing for Aid to the Church in Need. And if some of you here haven't been to the carol service later on in the year, please do come along. It's free, and it is on the 12th of December at Farm Street, kindly hosted by Father Dominic.
Don't vote in the general election. Come to the carol service.
Or is it going to be the 12th?
Well, if it is going to be the 12th, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
well, do vote and then go to the carol service. And Father Dominic's saying don't vote and go to the carol service. But anyway, I'll leave you to discuss it. But they have been great supporters of ours. So, and when we were in the House of Commons the other day, Mike Kane and others were referring to Newman and asking for his prayers, and I certainly did at Mass today. And I think it's like a renewal. And I was looking at the video of Pope Benedict's Mass in the cathedral again, listening to Sir James Macmillan's piece, just actually very briefly yesterday, because we were talking about him, and just remembering that and the beatification of Newman. But to end, my brief interlude here, what I read out at Ladywell the other week at the Shrine, and then in also the House of Commons, is that this is a reflection for me, a heart-to-heart through ACN. And you know his meditation on my vocation. He has not created me for naught. I shall do good. I shall do his work. And he says, I'm a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons. And that bond of connection, that is what you are at Aid to the Church in Need. And we had some years ago an event at the Oratory in Birmingham, and a sister from Sudan was speaking there. And she was talking about the bombs coming down, and the children running to her and saying, sister, sister, we're going to die. And she said, it was then that I remembered we're united in a chain of faith, hope, and charity. And I said to her, have you been to Newman's room? She said, no. On the inside of his wardrobe, there is a map of Sudan. She said, really? Yes, he used to follow everything going on politically. And this old map, I'm not sure it's still there, was there. And when General Gordon was killed, they found in his top pocket, breast pocket, a copy of the Dream of Gerontius. And I'm told, I haven't seen it, that it somehow was smuggled out afterwards. And it was being held there as a sort of relic, if you like, in some ways, there in Birmingham Oratory. So these connections, and that for me is so powerful. You are united. You are the ones enabling. As Father, you said at Mass, you know, the hands, the feet to go there. You are the ones enabling the church in need to do this remarkable work. These miracles of love you perform. We're privileged to hear Sister Annie and to hear Father Nishantha and to hear the various visitors we've had over the years. And later on, we'll have a short video saying thank you from one of those involved in the visit of Asia Bibi's family last year. You are that connection. And the one thing I can tell you, and Sister Annie and Father was so saying, is you are prayed for every day. It's not easy to be a Christian, to be a Catholic here. It's not easy to keep the faith, and you are prayed for. So that link of, that connection, that link of prayer is there, that link of love, that link of charity through ACN. And I've certainly still counted a privilege to know we're empowered by prayer in everything we do. St. John Henry Newman, pray for us. Our Lady, pray for us. We need your prayers, their prayers, and the prayers of those who turn to us relying on your faith. Now, sorry, that's the end of my homily for the day. I apologize, but just a few reflections. Father, you've been through so much, and we count it a privilege to have you with us, and we're looking forward very much to hearing about what you experienced and to offer some hope now also. So, Father Nishantha, thank you for travelling to be with us today. Thank you.
My dear brothers and sisters, thank you very much for giving me this precious opportunity to be with you. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm a Catholic priest from the Third Order Regular of St. Francis of Assisi. I'm attached to the TOR Franciscan Province of Our Lady of Lanka, Sri Lanka. At present, I serve as the director of the Scholasticate of TOR Franciscans in Kandy. Today, I stand before you to witness the East attack took place in Sri Lanka on 21st April 2019. Let me try my level best to set out for you what happened that day, on which 260 people died and more than 500 were wounded. In terms of number affected, it was probably the worst day of persecution in the modern era. My dear brothers and sisters, my friends, I have got some slideshows with me that will be seen later once my presentation is over. I was saying my Easter Mass at St. Peter's and Paul's Church, Ragama, 12 kilometers outside Colombo, our capital. All of a sudden, the police stopped the Mass and asked people to leave the church premises as soon as possible. I learned from the police that a series of bomb attacks had been launched targeting some famous Catholic churches. I was shocked when I heard about the massive attack at St. Sebastian's Church, Katuapitiya in Negombo, which I had worked for several years. Then by 9 a.m., I received a call from my provincial. He asked me to go to Ragam Hospital since Negombo Hospital itself was not big enough at all for the victims of the bomb blast. By 9:30 a.m., many wounded men and women, children were brought to the hospital. Practically all the people who were taken to the hospital were in a critical condition. Some of them had died en route to the hospital, and others died shortly after arriving there. Many others were rushed into the intensive care. Hospital service such as nurses, doctors, and minor staff did their utmost. The whole hospital was one big pandemonium. I was very busy in ministry in the last sacrament. It was a very sensitive time in which the relatives of wounded people searched for information about their relatives. We were there to help them as best we could. On the one hand, we were dealing with our own trauma because all those who died were known to me personally for a long time. Therefore, I had the duty of helping the hospital authority and the relatives in identifying the dead bodies and giving accurate information about wounded people. Since there was a threat of another attack, police dispersed the crowd gathered in the hospital premises. Once my work is over at Ragama Teaching Hospital, my provincial asked me to go to as quick as possible to Katuapitiya Church, also in the Nigambu area. This church has also been targeted, and in fact, the majority of dead were from here. At 11:15, the same morning, I arrived at Katuapitiya Church. The whole village was given over to preparing for funeral. There were many bodies still in the church. They were under the supervision of judicial medical officer. It was our duty to take these bodies to Nigambu Hospital with due dignity. By the time I arrived, many priests were already in the church premises, helping the victims in every possible way. My provincial had already ordered all the TOR Franciscan friars and student friars to stop their duties and report to the relief program at Katuapitiya. Some of our priest friars were helping the wounded people in the hospital. Some of them were sent to the houses where the dead bodies of the victims were supposed to be taken by evening. By 5 p.m., I was at the mortuary together with some other priests where the relatives of dead people got together to claim the bodies. It was a very difficult time. The people were so emotional. We had the responsibility of consoling them. Once the post-mortem was over, the bodies were handed over to the immediate relatives so that they might be able to entrust the bodies to undertakers. It was well organized under the patronage of government and the directives of the Catholic Archdiocese of Colombo. Our Cardinal, Malcolm Ranjit, Archbishop of Colombo, took immediate steps to maintain the peaceful atmosphere around the area. He requested all the Catholics in Sri Lanka not to take out our anger on their Muslim neighbors and to show them the utmost respect. His Eminence also ordered all the priests to be vigilant in case of retribution against the local Muslims. We saw this as our personal responsibility. By 9 p.m., we were able to take the mortal remains of their own houses. I personally visited all the houses together with my brother priests. The only thing what we could do was to be with them and console them in our prayers. We were so helpless in answering their emotional questions. We had to be very prudent and give people to speak, to talk to us, the space to talk to us. Our job was to be silent. Our job was to be a listening ear. It was also a silent moment in which we released ourselves with our own tears. Accordingly, all the priests in our province went as a group to be with the people. Meanwhile, the entire area was provided with high security. Even though new burial ground was prepared, and even though bodies were expected to be taken to the church premises, there was the threat of another attack. Therefore, the funeral processions were given high security. We had to bury the bodies as soon as possible because they were beginning to spoil. There was a huge help from Buddhist monks too. They were with us, helping and sharing the sorrow with us. It was a time in which the national religious unity was strengthened immensely. Within 3 days, we were able to bury all the bodies. His Eminence, Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, the Archbishop of Colombo, encouraged all the religious people to be with the victims. All the possible discussions were organized with the government to pay compensation for dead people and for the wounded people who were still in the hospital. His Eminence, together with other priests, visited the wounded people in the hospital. His Eminence also forced the government to carry out justice as soon as possible. Calling a special meeting, my provincial, Father Malaka Fernando, discussed with the entire province the possibility of helping the victims to recover. Helping and restoring the lives of innocent victims was taken as a personal duty of my province. Because Katuapitiya is a village that was evangelized by we Franciscan friars, and we have been serving the people of this area more than 100 years. Our suggested program involved short and long-term initiative. The healing will take a long time. Accordingly, the Caritas group of Archdiocese, together with Seth Sarana, opened extraordinary office at our own friary. They called all the religious brothers and sisters to help collect in facts and figures to help and support the victims with due dignity. Accordingly, 10 friars, including me, were appointed to visit the family on a daily basis. As we have discussed at the priestly gathering, each friar was given a family or two to visit and put families in contact with the office. We had two advantages. First and foremost, our friars were known to the victims personally. Secondly, they were given psychological training to handle this type of situation. Another 10 friars were appointed to visit hospitals and provide them with spiritual needs on daily basis. 10 other friars who were government teachers and professional in psychological councils were appointed to help the children and adults with psychological and educational help. As we have completed more than 5 months of the Easter attack, still we badly feel the need of helping these people continually. It remains our humanitarian duty to help these men, women and children in different ways. And we have launched all our programs hand in hand with the diocesan programs. We are seeking to provide scholarship to children caught up in the Easter attack. Our professional trauma counselors are also helping victims. We have also thought of training a group of supporters able to help in any future emergency of this kind. We want to help survivors of the atrocity in need of proper housing. We have got the resource persons to facilitate training program. We also have the professionals for psychological help. We have qualified teachers to help the children educationally. It is now almost exactly 6 months on from that terrible day. We are doing what we can, and we are grateful for all the support we are receiving. But there is so much that need to be done. Above all, the people who are grieving, the people who are wounded need justice. And they need justice in two respects. In the first instance, we are waiting for Sri Lankan government to release the results of an inquiry into exactly who carried out these atrocities. The people responsible are to be, the best of our knowledge, still at large. There were threats from Islamist group even this past week. Yes, we do have security across our entire armed forces, not just the army, but the Air Force, Police, and Navy as well. Service personnel are providing armed security at thousands of churches during the times of services. Until we have brought the people responsible for this crime to justice, nobody will feel safe. The second call for justice follows from this. Our people need healing. We are accompanying them through their pain. This is a journey that cannot be accomplished overnight. It will take years. Negombo, where one of the blasts took place, is the mainly Catholic area, evangelized by my predecessors as Franciscans 100 years ago. Nearby is a Muslim community, and there are extremists who are seeking conflict between Muslims and Christians. We must not allow this to happen. We must work together to bring healing. What has inspired me and given me great hope is that the people who have suffered most have, in many cases, shown the most faith and courage in their aftermath of the atrocity. They have lost so much, and yet they are full of trust in the Lord. Your prayers, both on the day of the Easter attack and in intervening period, have been great strength and emboldened us to carry out on and give witness to Christ. Now let us see some slideshows. And this was the statue. Sorry, let's go a little slow, please. And this was the statue kept on the Easter Sunday in the church. And you will see certain blots on the body of Christ. That is the very blood of people who died. And that is now nicely covered and kept in the same church as a souvenir. And these are the group of terrorists who attacked many churches in Colombo. And in a way, the Christians in the Diocese of Colombo, and there were many attacks prepared. But the terrorists missed their target because their time was 8:45 morning a.m., but by the time many churches have finished their mass and people have gone away. These were the only 2 churches in Colombo that had mass, and they were attacked. And this was the scene just before the attack. Mass was almost over. The secretary of the parish council was giving the vote of thanks for those who helped in the Easter services and all that. Just 1 minute before the attack, if you peep through that door and you see the way that the attacker come in. And this is few minutes after the blast. Actually, the bodies were here and there, and we did not take that photos. That's not ethical. And you just see the inside of the church. The gravity of the attack is seen here. And this is the same statue. And this is the sacred altar of the church. And there were many parts of body of people in the altar. And the police came and immediately closed the door. And this is how they kept the bodies, dead bodies, inside of the church. The outside parlor of the church to take to the hospital. And this is, I want to explain about this lady. And whole family is lost. No one remained, all died. 3 daughters and husband, 2 sons and 1 daughter and husband. Only consolation, only way of consoling herself to come to the statue of St. Sebastian. And she just cried in front of the statue of Sebastian after seeing the dead bodies of his whole family. Sebastian. St. Sebastian. And here the new cemetery allocated for the new martyrs. And I am ministering the last rites of people. And this is very interesting. And there are 7 bodies here. The same family, on the mother is left, and all other family members died in the attack. 8 members means 5 children, and the parents 7, and grandfather or grandmother or someone, And mother of the family is there. All others died in the attack. This is the bodies of those people. And this is the mother, only remaining person in the family. And just before the burial, and she did not allow the priest to bury, and he has some more time to be with the relatives. And this is the photo of it. And on the day of the burial, another threat came from the terrorists saying there will be a massive attack to the funeral processions. So the Navy was giving a high security to the church and to the area. And this is also another mother whose two sons were killed in the attack. And I just want to explain about this scenery. This is very important. And this is a young father. He's a taxi driver. And he was known to us for a long time. So whenever I want to go out, I chose his taxi. And personally, his family was known to me, his wife and 3 young daughters. In the attack, the little child asked some water from the father, and father came out from the church to take some water. And meanwhile, the blast took place. And I was just in front of the Digambo Hospital mortuary, and this father came to me, and I was with the police officer and some priest in the area. And this man was sharing with me something very sad. Father, I lost 2 of my daughters and my wife. I said, where? In the mortuary. Where is my youngest daughter? Has God allowed me to live with this daughter? Only daughter, but by then I knew already that little daughter died in the morning in the Ragama hospital where I went, and she died in my own hand. And after going to their home in the evening, this man was dead silent in front of the 4 coffins. Since I was a friend for a long time, I just wanted to open his mouth at least to release his emotions. I asked, you are silenced. And he was asking me what else I can do other than keeping silence. I asked, what do you mean? What do you mean? And this was saying, Father, just 2 days before it was Good Friday. On that particular day, Jesus was in front of Pilate keeping silence. And that was the biggest injustice that happened in the history of the world. And this is my chance. I should keep silence. I will experience resurrection, but I do not know when it is. In the morning, when I was in Ragama hospital, 6 little children died in my hand. And their parents were asking me to bless and give life. As their priest, I was quite helpless. And I was asking my God, like Jesus asked in the cross, Lord, why you have forsaken me? But this layman, normal taxi driver, he answered me, someday, somewhere there will be resurrection. Be patient. And he is the Father here. And the same mother who asked for justice from His Eminence Cardinal when Cardinal visited the house. And this is the mother of the young girl who died, only daughter of the family. And again, a very small child died in the attack. And this was done by the church. Already the child has lost parents and all the relatives. Nobody is there to even to do the funeral of this little boy. And this is again, the whole family is dead and gone. On the relatives performed the funeral and the funeral ceremony. Their house is not enough to keep the bodies, and even the neighbors opened their house to keep the coffins. And this is the help of the Buddhist monks. And they are the Buddhist monks. And they came and helped us. And you know, just after happening the series of attack, His Eminence Archbishop Malcolm Ranjit, the Cardinal Bishop of Colombo, he forced the government to do the justice. On the other hand, he very seriously asked his Catholic people to not to raise their hand against Muslim brothers. And he ordered his Presbyterian and all the religious in diocese to be aware of any attack that can happen throughout the day. And this was appreciated by the Buddhists, even the Muslims and Hindus. And it was a high time for us to show our Christian identity. And this was very much appreciated. And this is only 2 Buddhist monks, but hundreds and hundreds of Buddhist monks came to the church and the houses of victims, and they helped them in every possible way. And this was a moment in which our unity was strengthened, as I said to you in the presentation. And these coffins were carried by young seminarians. The reason was no laypersons were allowed to come into the church premises without being checked by security forces, because continually we had a great threat of another attack. And this is how the church premises was guarded by police and navy, air force and army. And this is how all the bodies, some 52 bodies, were brought to the new cemetery and laid in the cemetery. And you see, all these persons around the coffins were sent to the cemetery after check-in. So they were there, they were given their places like this, that in case of emergency, they can leave the cemetery immediately. And this is the hospital premises. And the wounded people were taken there. After sometimes they came to know that their sons and daughters were died, and this is how they reacted. This is also the church premises. And this is how the people who came to see the incidents were checked and taken into the church. The same photo again. And this is how the people of area, they offered their condolence to the dead people around the church. There were banners like these cutouts. And soon after the attack, after 3 days, when the burial is over, and this center was opened by the Major Superior Conference and the Bishop Conference for the relief program of people, and the place is called Emmaus. And this was the office that started in our own friary. And this facilitated the people. And now, this was the second step. And this is our own monastery, where the counseling and other facilities were provided with people. And this one perpetual help sister, and this Father Joseph T.O.R., and another diocesan priest, and one of the victims. And this is how our friars, they looked after and provided spiritual assistance to the patients in the hospital. Here's Father Vajra Silva, one T.O.R. priest. And as a group, priests went from house to house. Each priest is accompanied by a religious nun, so that they may have the chance to talk anything. And this is the counseling center and the monastery premises. And this is how we continue to do the relief program together with religious groups in the area. And this is our Archbishop, Archbishop Malcolm Ranjit, the Cardinal Archbishop Colombo. Everything happened under his supervision. And he's so serious with the government asking for justice, and he's so serious with the priest and asked not to have any type of problem with Muslims. And this is the great sign of Easter. And the blood of their martyrs is mixed with the resurrectional statue, and a great sign for our church. So I think you have gained a sufficient, at least a little knowledge about the Easter attack of Sri Lanka. There are many to share, but our time is limited. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address you. I just feel it as a personal privilege to me and to the T.O.R. Franciscan province in Sri Lanka that I represent. Your generosity is highly appreciated, and your generosity will heal many wounds wounded hearts. It will lead many people for reconciliation. It helped many people to stand with their own feet to see the beauty of life. I also make use of this same opportunity to thank all the officers of the Church in Need UK for inviting me. Once again, let me offer a big thank to all of you on behalf of my provincial and all the members of my province. Thank you very much, and may the good Lord bless you.